Hi, and welcome to the Oslo Architecture Association's first lecture on Zoom. My name is Tone Selvorsen, and I'm leading the association. And I'm very happy to introduce you to the first of a lecture series called New Forms. We are in this lecture series collaborating with the Oslo School of Architecture and Design, and this autumn run a lecture series called AHO Open on Thursdays, which you should also check out. This forum is for sure new to us at the Oslo Architecture Association. Instead of having our traditional Thursday lectures at Arkitektenes Hus, we're now meeting in digital space from different physical locations. The new formats we're exploring and the new forms we imagine that will emerge from this specific condition that we are collectively in, how it affects our practices as architects and also architecture itself, is a topic that we will continue to discuss in these talks. The lack of possibility to plan for physical events and to travel has pushed us to test new ways of keeping the dialogue on architecture and how to show architecture. So today will be a first of a line of experiments this autumn, where we'll be testing both format and form. In the next hour, we will be here in Oslo. We will be in Finland, Helsinki, where we will be visiting a housing project, and we will meeting our Finnish architect colleagues at their sauna project, Kulttuurisauna, a public sauna that works as an arena for cultural exchange. And that, I think, is a great place to start our conversation. I will now give the word to the program committee organizers of tonight's talk, Hanna Birkeland-Berg and Sigrun Sumarlidotter.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Let's first try to see the view here. No? Okay, first of all, we would like to quickly introduce our guests. And we have 3 of them tonight, but they're located at the same place, which is what we're very happy about. So first, I would like to introduce ASLLTK, which is a young practice established in 2018 by the architects Tuuli Kanerva, Leo Lindros, and Antti Suini. And the 3 graduated from the Aalto University in Finland and from the Accademia di Architettura di Mendrisio in Switzerland. The practice developed quite quickly when they in 2019 won a housing competition in Helsinki, and soon after that a competition of a new school building also located in Finland. It's an organically organized practice where the 3 collaborate on architectural projects and work individually within the fields of architecture, art and design. And we are very much looking forward to seeing some of their work today, as we find their process in developing architecture very interesting and of especially tactile and sensitive character. And joining Tuuli and Leo tonight is Tuomas Toivonen, and he's co-founder of Now for Architecture and Urbanism, also an Helsinki-based office that works within a wide spectrum of projects, but with an in-depth work in the field of residential architecture of what we believe to be of great quality. And Tuomas's work outside of this includes interiors, writing, music, publications and more. And something we find especially interesting, which we will see some of tonight, is several projects that states an interest of creating and adding small contributions with different methods to civilization and to culture. And as Tone also said, the Kultur i Sauna, which is the location of tonight's lecture, is a great example of this.
We'll now give the word over to Helsinki.
Hello.
Hello. Or were we muted the whole time?
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, okay. It will be a strange start.
But now we will bring us, so you
Yes, we will mute
talk.
us and you can talk.
Okay. Hello. So it's now 8 o'clock in Helsinki, and the sun has set about 10 minutes ago, and we are just enjoying the civic twilight for about 40 minutes. We are now in Kulttuurisauna in the neighborhood of Merihaka, east of the center of Helsinki, and the sauna is not open at this hour because since after we reopened after Corona, at the Corona spring, we've only been open in the mornings, and the sauna time ends at midday. So we are now heating for tomorrow's bathing hours, and this is the time when we do our other work. And I thought that after a quick round of introductions, we're going to do a tour of this building, and then we're going to connect with Eva Sarlin, a colleague who is living in one housing project that I've designed. And then we'll have Leo and Tuuli's kind of more coordinated and kind of coherent presentation. And then we'll conclude by setting a fire into the fireplace and then having a kind of dialogue at the end. So in a way, we have these are the components that we are kind of planning to go through. So I'm Tuomas.
Hi, I'm Tuuli.
Leo, hey. Should you start or?
Well, just quickly, like,
Yeah.
thanks for the invitation. It's such a pleasure to have this opportunity to also like look into our own work kind of in a more precise way and also communicate it outside. That's always a difficult task.
Yes.
Well, first of all, maybe like because we have kind of your request invited Tuomas to join us tonight, then maybe in our talk we will give a more deep reason for why their practices has been so important for us. But just like generally, we first got to know each other when we were students of his here at Kulttuurisauna, where they have this new academy, almost like an independent school of their own, where they, well, this is maybe like a topic Thomas would maybe like to elaborate.
So the building, and I can, when we go around, I can try to explain, but basically under one roof we have the bathing, which is the kind of, I guess, the organizing the main activity. And then in addition to that, then has been a school, or a kind of something we call the new academy, which has been running already since, actually before we opened for bathing. And the building was built in 2011 and 12, and we opened in 2013. And since then we've been running a public bath. And when I say we, mainly means me together with my partner Nene Tsuboy, who's she's not here today with us. But so this is a new building that we designed and built and have been working here basically as sauna operators since. When you come in to the sauna, you enter in a way from this direction, and this is the city. And then you would come here to the front desk. And this is where you get your towel and your key. And I would be sitting here on the other side. And then generally you go to, and you go either swimming or to the sauna. This is the dressing room. These are the showers. And here we have the sauna. That makes sense. Katkes. Okay.
Pitäisikö laittaa?
Nyt toimii. Okay, we're back. Yeah, it's not meant to be filmed, so this is kind of that's how technology is telling us that you should be here in present. So this is the Helsinki harbor. We're kind of occupying this kind of corner position directly on the water. This is where you go swimming, and that's the archipelago southeast of the center. And in the south wing, we have the classroom where the new academy has been operating. And basically this was the part of the building that we finished first. And in this space, we could hold classes even when the construction was going on in the other part of the other part of the building. And since then, this is where we can organize things that basically either as a working space or as a classroom. We have a small library also to build things. And then when we have guest lecturers also, often they end up staying here overnight. It's very windy today in Helsinki. The sea level is very high. We have a kind of aqua alta is coming, and if it goes 1 more meter up, then we will start getting wet feet in the courtyard. And then still, so here is the salon where there's Tuli and Leo are there. And yeah, this is very and then here is the office where formerly I think we worked more, but now I think we are doing all of our architecture and design work actually more or less working or sitting at the front desk. And now already for several years there's been a kind of static or generative kind of sound playing from this room through the wall. So here you see some of the equipment which is producing the sound. Yeah, the settings are quite good. I don't want to touch them, but it's not a recording. It's constantly playing. Here's a subwoofer, and here's another speaker which is pointing to the wall. Here are some other things, and basically. And so our also kind of my practice as an architect is kind of balancing, as you said, several different things. I think my expertise, or in a way the thing that I've been mostly working with in the recent decade has been actually housing and trying to find ways to work with housing that allows me to, in a way, kind of practice from a kind of a certain position. And this is something that I'd like to talk a bit further later. But basically, you know, before we started the sauna, I think we had a kind of very typical young practice. But then the sauna was a way for us to somehow make a living kind of directly out of architecture, and in a way work together in collaboration with the building to, and then through that to be able to somehow have a certain sense of kind of order and kind of clarity in a way in our work, and also in a way not to be consultants purely. And that also allowed me to work on kind of as an architect in a bit different way. And I could only do one project at a time, and since then I've usually been working on a single housing project consecutively, one after the other. The most recent of them we will visit via Eva shortly, and I think kind of through this work, I think it's been, and maybe through the teaching as well, it's been a kind of opportunity to both have a kind of very practical, in a way, hands-on and on-site kind of aspect about the practice, but also at the same time to have a kind of a position from where you can kind of critique or kind of develop a kind of theoretical understanding or a kind of analysis, let's say, of both the ways that kind of housing and the housing market, and in a way architectural labor in the housing market and the real estate market works, but then also to one project at a time try to kind of investigate maybe a certain aspect, or try to engage in making of housing in a certain way. And so we are now back here, and yeah. Is Eva online?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to turn off my camera and then maybe we can still discuss. So you're now in Latakartano, maybe about 4.5–5 kilometers from here?
Yep. Maybe I just wanted to say hi. Maybe before, I'm the current resident of the apartment. I'm just gonna switch my camera around. So yeah, I just thought I'd show you a little bit of context. Over there, you can see that's the start of the fields. And this whole kind of housing area is completely surrounded by either research fields or nature reserves. So it's a really interesting and very relaxing place to live in. Every commute is quite remarkably like, quite different to living in London where I used to live. So we are approaching the 3 buildings that Tuomas built. I live in this one. And we're just gonna kind of.
And you just moved in about, what, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, so I've only had 2 saunas. There's like a, there's like private sauna. So there is a sauna in the building. And every Sunday there's like a kind of common sauna, 1 shift for women, 1 shift for men. And I think it's amazing how much like interaction I've already had with my neighbors, because you just meet them. But I don't recognize them with like normal clothes on. I just recognize them in towels. So this is the 1 building, 2nd building, and then that's the car park and cycling, outdoor cycling. And this is children's playgrounds. Recently, the kids just dug like these massive trenches in there, so you could probably bury someone. And this is like a little allotment garden. We're just gonna enter into the corridor. I don't want to go to the sauna space because there's been like someone's sauna shift just finishing now. So this is the wood storage, just full of logs. Here's one. Just casually, there's all these logs lying around on the floors, which is amazing. And this is where you can heat the sauna.
So this is the kind of ante-room or the kind of the entrance space to the sauna, and behind and there's a kind of a latch that allows you to add firewood to the sauna without going into the sauna proper, so that if someone else's shift is there, you can go and check if they've started heating, and then you can start heating the space without going there with your shoes on and so on. And now the last shift, I guess, ended just 20 minutes ago, so that those were the embers from the last shift. Normally in contemporary housing, the saunas are run with electricity, but in this case, we ended up with a kind of traditional wood burning stove. It's very typical for Finnish housing projects to have saunas. And so Eva is now going up. This is the kind of entrance level, which is 1 story up from the kind of garden level, and then there are common spaces like a laundry room and a kind of bike fixing workshop, and then and also apartments. And then now we are going up.
Oh, I guess what's happening is actually that Tuomas's
okay,
screen
so you are not. I think you have to talk as well for us to.
Yeah.
It's all to you, Eva. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna enter building or our apartment. I think my partner might be in here. I'm just gonna switch the camera, perhaps so we can see a bit better. This is the entrance and storage. And this is the bathroom. And I don't know if you can see, but the rug is this kind of woven material, so it's really nice for the feet. And then this is the space. It's actually quite luxurious, the height of it. I don't know if you can kind of comprehend it, but this is obviously like a normal table, and it's like quite a lot taller than the normal ceiling heights would be. That I feel like the windows are a little bit deceptive because the windows are also much bigger than usual, so the kind of the scale is hard to see on the video. But so that's the space. That's the sleeping area. And so as you can see, the ceiling and all the walls are really beautiful, exposed concrete. You kind of have this like nice details going on with the finishing. And actually last weekend when I was in the sauna, I was talking to this lady, and she's like responsible of doing the gardening a lot of it. And she was like, in the end, I said where we live, and I said it's quite interesting looking. It's really different than hers. And she said like, are you the one with the weird ceiling? because I think all the other ceilings are finished with white. So this is like when you're coming from the entrance, you can kind of see straight into the apartment and see this shiny concrete. So I invited her over. You can see here the 2 other houses, and then the car park and the one of the bicycle storage areas.
How has it been your first weeks? Kind of.
Really nice. I think because this is like a little bit further away from the city center, so I was kind of maybe not so excited about living here. In a way, it's like a suburb, but actually every time I cycle, I cycle through the nature reserve. So at least 5 kilometers of the commute is just nature. Like kind of really beautiful wetlands or forest. So it's really, really nice. And yeah, it's just really, I mean, the space is obviously extremely beautiful. And the sauna, I mean, I think for me, I've lived abroad for the past 10 years, and just the fact that you can make a fire, it's really important to me. And that's like something I really miss. Because in Finland, there's like a lot of like, every nature reserve, every kind of park has a fire pit, and often there's even public wood, so you can use the wood, and there's sometimes even axes and stuff. Maybe this is similar in Norway, but for me, like living especially in London, you're just completely detached from anything that's tactile. So the fact that I can come I can have like a real sauna. I can literally have to heat the fire and put the fire going. It's just really nice. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Is there anything you wanted to kind of see? I don't know, because I think I mean, this is pretty trippy, right? That you can see, you know, it's not like I've never been to a lecture where you could actually see the building. Like you always see like professionally photographed things, but this is kind of like, you know, you can see really like everything right now. Like you can see kind of the not so pleasant things like that. Like I don't personally like the car park that much, but that's also, you know, you can kind of like be exposed to that now. Like you would never kind of have that, or, you know, if you would see this in pictures, you'd just see the beautiful kind of highlight photos. But I think it's quite interesting to visit a building in real time like this.
Thanks. Very nice to see. It's nice to see you've like moved in, and I can kind of, I can see that. Yeah, it looks familiar, but also different now that it's occupied by you. So maybe I think maybe we switch now video to this way. So. So maybe to kind of explain what we just saw, also, yeah. So basically, this housing project was completed, I think, 3 years ago or something, and I worked with a builder with whom I had another project maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and with this, it was I did the. I was the I guess lead architect or the architect in charge for it, and I took care of the kind of construction supervision as well. And kind of my kind of strategy with the building was that basically I proposed there that my fee for the entire project would be that at the end I send an invoice that's equivalent to the kind of buying price of one small unit, and this was for me like a kind of, I think it came out of the idea, and this is the unit basically where Eva is living now, and before that we had another former student who was living there since almost the beginning, and basically this was for me mainly a kind of strategy to have kind of a part of the building in which there is I would have, in a way, kind of more control, and I could kind of do, because I think every housing project, or like every project, is kind of full of kind of little things or kind of compromises, and for this, the way I approached it was that I'd like to at least do this one room in the way that I think it should be done, and that's going to make me feel a lot better about the rest of the project. And so it's a kind of, the apartment where we visited is in a way ended up different than a lot of the other apartments, because those were the choices that were made in that unit. Anyone could have chosen bare concrete ceilings and walls, but no one did, and basically and that unit for me is a kind of mask through which I can somehow kind of look at the building in a kind of, I can experience it in a kind of more kind of positive way. And I think it's a kind of another interpretation maybe of this our attitude in also building the sauna, that you try to kind of in a way invest your work maybe in a way that you kind of gain control, let's say, of the kind of means of production, or that you can also take things, let's say, out of the market by actually owning them, and then those things don't have to behave like like the rest of real estate or the other apartments or something like this. I mean, this is kind of a it works very differently, and in a way you have to set your compromise in kind of case by case. But I think in this case it's been really nice also as an architect to both, for example, to see the sauna, and we've met every bather who's been here, but in this case also to remain in a way the architect of the building, who also, you know, kind of still has a relationship, visits the building. You know, I have slept there as well. So somehow we had some relatives staying there in the beginning and so on. And that you kind of keep a relationship with the thing that you make, and through that you can also, I think you can also kind of learn, or in a way make very different types of observations about how, for example, the choices that you've made, how they work, and in a way this kind of afterlife of the architecture, which also isn't necessarily this kind of very well curated kind of photographs and a kind of controlled presentation, which I'm somehow kind of allergic to. But and I think this was like an experiment of how to present the building through this visit. And so just quickly, the building has about 80 units, and it has two of the buildings have 8 units on the floor, and then one of the buildings has only 4 units per the floor. So the largest units are about 85 square meters, and then the small one, this one is 30, where Eva is, and then there's a 50 square meter variant as well. And they were built in a kind of maybe a bit unusual technique. So the concrete frame was built on site very quickly with kind of vertical shafts that were kind of left completely open, into which then all of the bathroom, kitchen units, which were prefabricated in a factory, were kind of dropped into a kind of technical tower that had all the electricals, all the plumbing, all the air conditioning, all of the light switches and everything were kind of dropped in at the end of the construction. And this made the construction phase much quicker than in most buildings, and kind of resulted also in kind of a lot of, in a way, the price or the construction costs were relatively cheap, and it was possible for the builder to sell them very quickly for a kind of radically low price in Helsinki, in a way, so that the entire building was sold in about 1 or 2 weeks. And you know, this is so it's in a way low-cost housing. It's not necessarily affordable, and this is maybe something we can kind of come back to in towards the end. But maybe that's one of the things that I kind of like to talk about, this dilemma in a way, or in a way the kind of compromise or the kind of balance that you have to work with as an architect, especially if you're kind of you know, when you have to work, let's say, with or when you have to kind of balance, let's say, your own agenda or your own starting points or your own priorities, your own sensibilities, then with, let's say, the kind of realities of you know, the so-called market, or the priorities of a stock publicly owned company, like a construction company or so. And then, you know, somehow a lot of my experience as an architect has been a kind of working in a way as a kind of double agent, on one way, kind of working with a client or a developer or a builder, and then working with the city, specifically in cases where the permitting and the kind of let's say the buildings are difficult to design in a kind of very straightforward way. And so to kind of work in this, in between these two, and then somehow try to select maybe 1 or 2 things that I can try to put forward, and then kind of work into the equation. And very often, actually, design becomes the form of consensus. So these kind of conflicts or different interests that different landowner, developer, inhabitant, you know, kind of authorities or planners, for example, may have. I see the architect's role really as a kind of negotiator, and very much the contract is in a way the built contract. And then this becomes very difficult in a way, no one should win. And I think this is the kind of, if somebody wins, it's a tragedy, and so somehow to try to mediate in a way this form, and in that mediation, that's the opportunity where you can in a way put them forward in a way you can script in, let's say, little fragments of your own agenda or your own interest, and in a way take those further. And
is it a game you get better at everything?
I don't know. It's a yeah. It's maybe not the easiest way to work, but it at least it's in a way, yes. And maybe you kind of start to read the situations in a different way than when you were encountering them for the first time. But of course, like every the terrain is all the time changing, and very often your reading of the terrain is not correct also, and then things happen and so on. But I think it's kind of when you in a way really seek those tensions or those forces, they really become very they become very real, and once you identify something like this, and you can kind of you can analyze it, then it becomes possible, let's say, to act upon it, or to negotiate, for example, with the builder on how can we affect like the price of a housing unit, and how do you design, can you design the price of the housing, or can you design the ownership model, or can you design the in a way the development model, for example, instead of designing the window detail only, or something like this. But I think this is, so maybe this is a kind of that's maybe kind of a kind of description in a way of my my kind of professional profile, in a sense of trying to both be a kind of curious observer and try to analyze, or to look at things also through theory and through teaching, and in a way through maybe writing about them, and kind of that to have this kind of critical inquiry on one side, but then at the other side to be completely in a way wet, that you really enter, for example, this like a housing or a construction project kind of very intensely, and in a way that we would build something of some considerable scale, for example, ourselves, to learn and to understand how it works, and to make a commitment of, for example, owning or running a building, and in a way making your staking your livelihood on for example on that, and like the sauna, for example, or to work for 3-4 years on a project, and kind of restrain from being restrained from sending an invoice from it, and then at the end kind of end up with something that you have to then figure out what you do with it, for example, and who's going to live in this apartment, and what does that mean that you have this space that can be inhabited, and so on. But I would very much like to hear now what you've been working on, and then I think let's build connections later. So the way the presentation works is that you're going to share the screen, and we're going to keep this camera on, but I will turn this.
And we will use.
Yeah.
And we will use our microphone. Works? Yes? Yeah? Okay. So we will, from this screen, share the presentation for you. And this one will show what's happening in the background. Just a second. Okay. Näkyykö se nyt meidän se? Okay.
Joo.
Well, we can't have that. Sharing is box. Bring your shared window to the front. Is it working? Can you see like a black screen?
Yes, we see your screen.
We see your screen. Anyone?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Yeah, we come to like the less spontaneous part of the evening.
Now we see if we share the screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I could start by again briefly explaining why we kind of as the young architects here wanted to invite now represented by Tuomas to have this joint lecture with us. And well, firstly, to put things on a timeline, now, or Tuomas and Nene, they represent the kind of the generation immediately preceding ours. So they are from the generation that traditionally we, the next generation, questions and criticizes the hardest. However, within this generation, we find something like truly timeless and worth pursuing in the way Tuomas and Nene conduct their efforts in the field of architecture, and more importantly, in life. Kind of pursuing a career, they are dealing with the art of living and working. Instead of walking this known path that is often only the result of this neoliberal system, they craft their own according to their personal interests and values. They are, as heard, active in writing. Is there a problem? No. Writing, making music, publications, they organize seminars, teach, operate this public sauna, which they built themselves. And that's in fact the most important part of this equation for us, the fact that on top of everything, they also build. But it's really this feeling of being in charge of your own path and thus becoming a different kind of practice, which is why now have been such an important reference point for us. And this appreciation for the art of living it's connected to the question that many thinkers from the East and West have put forward. And it's would you do what you do if you knew you were dying? It's not by chance that yogis contemplate death after their practice. They remembering is this with life. The stillings are also made to make us think of life and death through a collection of objects symbolic of the ephemerality of life, the inevitability of death. We tend to think it's a lot of projects.
Elasticity, that's with the question. Is it possible to create a piece of furniture that works as a river of the nature of our lives, the same way as those one still life paintings of the 16th and 17th centuries did?
We are having
we said, we consider that as a very. Are you not hearing? Or
the connection is a little bit bad, so we wonder if you
something is on
one of the devices, maybe the computer.
I think it's because it's both computer, or you're using two computers maybe.
Because it keeps freezing and the connection is quite slow.
Okay.
Okay, we are back.
It's better.
I hope.
And then
Okay.
again, maybe we have to turn off the second video, but I think for now it's good to share now. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Okay, but I can share now the screen. It's
Now it's okay.
it's better than nothing. Okay, is it now? Now do you hear? And is it?
Sharing. No, quite well.
And we see shared screen, but not full screen.
Shared screen, but not
Full. Not full screen, but we can see.
sharing is paused.
Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know where it paused, but well, in the end, there were 3 of these furniture pieces designed to explore this topic of a furniture piece as a kind of vanitas still life painting. So first, a shelf. Oh no, sorry. First to say, the criteria of the form was of this furniture was such that it was to achieve the same impact as those still lifes, but through a tectonic and spatial impression rather than a symbolic one like skulls and such. And awareness was heightened through this labile expression of how the planes, frames, and bars of wood were abruptly joined. And this shelf is an exercise in creating a repetitive frail structure. The crossing point of the vertical and the horizontal structure has a mirror disc on the horizontal surface. The mirror disc reflects the structure above in a way that forms a whole, I mean absence of material, to the point where the shelf should be carried. In fact, the idea was that a certain uncertain balance would make each object placed on top of it look similar to a glassware placed too close to the edge of a tabletop. And the next piece is a coffee table in which the most logical rigid joint in the middle is replaced with a bar of wood penetrating emptiness. And last, this long table that has these non-structural looking joints where the elements only barely touch each other. And now, if you look at these collages of vanitas and the furniture, we see suddenly that in many of the vanitas still lifes, actually the topic of uncertain balance is already there. The plates are placed too near to the edge. An instrument is dangerously balanced at a 45-degree angle on top of the table. And this is a collage of a painting. It's not we cannot take credit for the instrument. Yes. So furniture was here explored as a stimuli for thoughts on mortality and uncertainty of life. And even though we considered these pieces of furniture somewhat successful in accomplishing their goal, we come to the next topic, which is nature. And we think that most likely the greatest diversity of this kind of stimuli for this kind of existential thoughts are found outside in the nature, in its cycles, the changing of the seasons, the sun, the stars. Nature offers similar triggers that, when observed, make us reflect on our lives and connect us to something bigger than us, a cosmic dimension.
So recently, we've been captivated by the work of Frank Lloyd Wright, John Lautner, and Alberto Ponis, to name a few, all of whom emphasize nature as the main source for architecture. We are also interested in the attempts of organic architecture to try and find a balance between human habitation and nature. Maybe even as a way to approach the difficult question of sustainability today. The dilemma between sustainable development and construction as an unecological act is real. However, as Pallasmaa has put it, the interest in sustainable architecture has been focused on technical and aesthetic approaches instead of regarding sustainability as an ethical and mental issue, one arising from values of life. We cannot meaningfully speak of sustainable architecture without thinking of sustainable culture, ways of living, and values. The basic assumptions and aspirations of the prevailing economic system are fundamentally unsustainable. At the moment, we are interested in this idea of trying to make architecture that wouldn't lead to consumption due to its imperfections, as sort of architecture of empty space, meaning that a space should feel good without anything in it, and best with the minimum. Architecture in which the richness is in the space itself and atmosphere building is not left to the realm of decorating. In this project from 2 years ago, the nature connection was a driving factor. It's an atelier residence, a rentable retreat for the artists, where the artists can both relax and work. It's situated deep in the forest, but with a view to the lake. On the spot, there used to be an artist wilderness atelier built in the early 20th century, but demolished in the 1980s. Only its foundation remains. And this foundation is now used as a gravel-filled terrace for a new atelier. The spatial idea is based on two different kinds of spaces with different relationships to the outside, the space of work and the space of inspiration. The big atelier space and the kind of space of work is a white and introverted one for concentration. The outdoor-like living spaces on the perimeter that open up to the nature and to a panoramic view around the house. The lowering of the threshold to a minimum between the inside and the outside is made possible by the very deep eaves and the gravel fill of the foundation terrace. We also made a short film of 4 scenes to try and capture the feeling in this atelier during different seasons. And we tried to embed it in the PDF, and it was unsuccessful. So I tried to show something from the internet. Miksi tääkään ei nyt toimi? Ei helvetti.
Ota. Otetaan se uudestaan. Näin. Now share screen.
Okay. And it's only a portion of it because it's 3 minutes long, and we'll just run through this one scene. These calm, stagnant images of the house in the rain, snow and sun invite for patient observation and try to fool us to believe that the house is already there. The film proved to be a powerful design tool as well. The radical openness in the living spaces aimed for a direct relationship with nature. We understood the exposed nature of the space and used the deep eaves to kind of soften the radicality of the experience by creating this deep covered middle space in between. However, as a self-critic, our true feeling now is that the deep eaves might not be enough for one to feel safe in this space. As the nights get dark in the autumn, the fully glazed living spaces may present a frightening experience nonetheless. Also, the sleeping and sitting nooks to which one can withdraw and from where one can observe the surrounding forest concentrate on the distant experience of observation rather than experiencing the outdoor-like conditions of the interiors, which we aimed at. The lesson was taught to us. Oh, crap.
Oh.
It's not
Oh,
sharing
no.
again the right screen.
So it's what?
Who would have guessed that this presentation is the one with technical problems?
I stop sharing and then I share it again. But luckily there was nothing missed in terms of pictures, I think. You know, because the last picture was, wait, this.
Yeah,
this.
yeah. So this was the kind of sleeping and, oh, it's not working.
Bring your window to the front, it says.
Mitä sekin tarkoittaa?
I don't know.
No. So this is the very exposed condition of these living spaces that we had a critique of. And these are the kind of sleeping nooks that are replacing actual bedrooms in the atelier. So this lesson was of too much exposure. How would you say it? I don't know. The lesson was taught to us by Frank Lloyd Wright, who most often places a built-in sofa right at the perimeter and thus places the inhabitant comfortably to where the blurring of the inside and outside can be experienced best, and at the same time creates a more secure atmosphere in the space itself. To illustrate the evolution of our thinking, we will also show our most recent villa project. It's an attempt to take the idea of living in the landscape further and find a better balance between the open and the enclosed in regard to human and nature. We have a model of it because as an exercise, we developed this project mainly in a physical model and have drawn the drawings of it only afterwards. But because it's developed in a model, we had a great idea that we would kind of take the camera inside the model outside and see the sea through the windows as if you were there. But as you can see, it's pitch dark already.
I think you can see something. Let's try.
All right. Okay.
Okay, we are trying. Tästä tulee kuitenkin valo tästä. No mä en tiedä. ehkä sinne jonnekin niin, että sen tulee valo tonne. Ei siitä
Let's not burn
se
it.
tulee tuli steariinit. Joo, siitä.
Okei. Ehkä laita se niin kaikkien
Joo,
niiden tilojen läpi.
niin. Älä putoa mereen.
Let's almost burn the model.
Let's not burn it.
Näytti siitä, mitä se näyttää.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Well, let's go back inside and
Let's
maybe
go.
we can take the
Yes.
model.
Good idea.
It's getting dark.
On.
So, näkyykö siinä nyt meillä se meidän kuva? Okay. The idea of this house was to produce an experience of living in the seascape with two complementing spatial qualities. A cave-like space where one feels protected and ready to face the harshness of the sea, and a space that looks onto a garden.
This one.
Se ei näy tässä. Se näkyy.
Mikä näkyy?
Se pitää näyttää tuosta.
No joo.
Mä näen kameran, minkä teidän presentaatiota.
Oh.
Näytä vaan siihen,
Okay. So, meaning
Yeah.
this space.
So this is the main space of the house, without the bedroom, which is in the back of the garden. But the idea is about this one space that has a see-through nature. That when you look at to the one side, you are in a cave, and on the other side, you are in the garden.
The garden behind. Yes.
And this image we've made from the image looks towards the sea and shows the sheltered cave-like side of the space with thick walls. This side is surrounded by views of the rugged rocky shore and the expanse of the open sea. At the back of the living room, there is a sofa with a walled garden as a setting behind it. A wild garden that is sheltered from the north wind coming from the sea. It is a space to take distance from the overwhelming expanse. A safe room for earth and sky. A canyon-like space. Steps along the garden wall takes you around a corner to a bedroom hidden yet open to the garden. There is a critique of Finnish architecture that says our architecture is very much forest architecture and hasn't produced an architecture of the city. While these last two projects are examples of architecture in the nature, we run into this topic of urbanity while doing this competition, which we also won, the housing block in the new district of Jätkäsaari in Helsinki. In our references, we ended up going back to what's thought of as a typical Helsinki block of the 1920s, a closed courtyard block with an earth-based courtyard. This competition sounds very good for the architect at first. It went by the name of housing reform, and it was organized with the intention to break some fixed principles occurring in housing developments of today. In other words, to realize something outside the mainstream. Our take on the idea of reform was directed into simplifying the construction techniques and building technology, meaning a massive brick construction with natural ventilation, and also to the generous layout of the apartments. The layout of the The layout of the apartment is very uncommon for today's standards in Finland, but it's based on the typical Helsinki apartment plan of 100 years ago. The plan is based on a central hall with rows of rooms around its perimeter. The catch in these bigger apartments is that each apartment has 2 entrances, in which case it is possible to separate a studio apartment from the whole, to bring in an aging relative, to create a hallway situation for a teenager, a home office, or just to rent it out. An idea not too far from the service entrances of the 1920s. The old Helsinki blocks taught us also about facades and openings. The old housing blocks have well-proportioned, vertically oriented windows that give a good amount of light, but also allow a sense of privacy. The apartments are not lookouts to the courtyard and vice versa. However, we wanted to give the apartments with an even more generous connection with the outside, so we ended up using glass blocks as a semi-transparent light and gaze-passing element that wouldn't expose the apartment's interior too much to the city, but would bring in the maximum amount of light. By using lots of physical models in our work, we kind of admit ourselves our inability to imagine a space in full, especially when it comes to its emotional and psychological impact. When speculating, i.e. designing, it's so easy to convince oneself why something is good through some self-invented causality that the built reality then proves wrong or inadequate.
Yeah. Alberto Ponis's houses in Sardinia are an unbelievable example of architecture becoming such an integral part of its surrounding that you almost mistake it as being part of the landscape itself. One of the reasons he succeeded in this was, of course, thanks to his thorough study of the area, its culture and building techniques, but also to the fact that he conceived his houses directly on site and in a very physical way. To materialize his idea, he used an ancient technique of spider's web triangulation to sketch the space on site in one-to-one scale. The internal and external details Ponis drew only when the house was nearly finished. Yes. To learn from existing spaces, it also requires a lot of effort to reach a point in which one concretely understands how things are coming together. We ourselves have had the hobby of measuring existing spaces that for any reason felt good to us. This is a small example of a study we made to better understand and learn from Aalto's Villa Mairea. The example is the corner of the music room. It's an open glazed corner towards the forest with a southern sun shining through it. Here I was looking at how the loose gathering of furniture creates a sort of terraced micro landscape set against the one outside. How the plants of a warmer climate growing upward and hanging in front of the pine pines are juxtaposed with the pines outside. The corner pillar also seems to borrow its texture from the pine's groovy bark. A corner as a collage of scales and climates. What do you think? Should we now, quite a lot is said. Is there something, Tuomas, we could pick up from? Maybe, I don't know,
Or do we run it through?
Or do we run it through?
I think it's up to you. I think if you still have, please finish the segments that you're in now.
It's not, no, it's a good kind of point to,
okay.
Or what do you think? Okay, then we are through, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's
go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a competition we did together with Jan de Wilder and Inge Wink. Another example of how the process of looking at what's already there made us propose something unexpected. The looking happened by communicating observations on the qualities of the site, the park, and the existing buildings to Belgium. First, we studied.
Just a small reminder, like Jan and Inge, they live in Belgium, and that's why we were communicating the things to Belgium. Yes.
We kind of took it by granted that everyone knows. Yeah, sorry. So first we studied the existing museum and then the grounds around it, after which we proposed a building with an emphasis on the garden views. From the very beginning, the free use of a site model, drawings, paintings, and text, we try to visualize ourselves a possible relationship between the place and the new building. However, after making all these notes, we eventually decided not to propose any additional building. The drawing and model making of the surroundings and trees had made us sensitive to the qualities that we decided should not be spoiled and to the opportunities too advantageous to be missed. We found that we could create an entrance foyer and a cafe with the best view of the park just by using a neglected auxiliary building on the left. In fact, it even had a loggia-like fenestration to go with the new use, and on the street side, a risalto in the middle to work as the most natural entrance. The new plan would become possible by simply adding one additional floor inside the roof of the auxiliary building. As for the underground exhibition spaces, we created a plot to save the biggest tree on the site, and with the same gesture of two circular stairs to create a courtyard with a fountain in it. The courtyard then becomes the water feature which the park was lacking. The fountain would also cover the noise of the traffic with soothing sounds of water. Sadly, we know that we were out of the game as soon as we took the decision not to build anything. The jury wanted a new landmark, as always.
Okay. This is the last project we will talk about. It's the Sammontala Educational Center, one of the two competition wins, thanks to which we founded the office a year ago. So winning this competition was a big surprise for us because we had as our starting point the surrounding area that is built in the today a bit untrendy postmodern style, typical of the 1990s. For example, this is the kind of orange brick that is used in all of the surrounding buildings. And we, in a kind of cold-blooded but also appreciating way, just took that as it was, as the only competitors. And another important factor of the design was, or factor for the design was the size of the building, which was really challenging. It was 16,000 square meters. So our aim was to try to make it feel as small and clear as possible. Therefore, the building is in 2 floors with the upper floor articulated as part of the roof. The organizing idea for the layout of this big school was to create 3 clearly different outdoor spaces through the positioning of the building right to the edge of the plot, which in turn would make the large building itself, which in turn would make the large building itself more orientable through these outdoor spaces. Down there is a loose paved, kind of a loose square formed by public buildings, and in the south, a forest-like schoolyard with Scots pines and spruces. The intention was to create a sort of continuum to the to the very nearby forest zone. It's a kind of nature reserve. And here we see how the lobby and the canteen space opens both towards the square and towards the courtyard. That in turn has an opening towards the schoolyard and the forest behind it. The upper floor has these deep bay windows all over for the children to hang out in. Another reason why we were surprised to win was that we had approximately 10 paintings as part of our submission. Huh? It's working. Okay. So for this competition, we wanted to substitute part of the, or use as part of the images, not computer-generated renderings, but these paintings depicting singular features of the design. We trusted that in this way we could, yes, surely produce several images in short amount of time, but also that the paintings would, with the paintings we would focus the attention where we wanted it. Since in a more photographic pictures, the attention goes easily to details not relevant or solved at this stage. As a surprise, in the prize ceremony, we found out that 90% of the people, even in the jury, had not been able to understand the paintings or had skipped them as something not understandable. In fact, it seemed like only the architectural jury had really looked at them and understood their content. To be honest, we were a little bit discouraged by the notion that most people will read only pictures that resemble photographs. Later on, we found out that we were yet not the only ones frustrated by this visual illiteracy, as lately we saw a lecture by filmmaker and visual artist Peter Greenaway, who has been talking about the topic for decades. He states that we are living in a very text-based culture where there is an impoverishment of visual communication. Even the art forms thought of as being purely visual, such as film, is largely, and now I'll quote Greenaway, text-based or illustrated text.
To finally round it up, here are still the 4 topics that we have scratched the surface of. We chose them because they are things that have occupied our minds the most during the last couple of years. And we have an itch that in thinking about topics like these may lie the keys to the art of living and working. That's
now to the fireplace.
That's from us now. We apologize for the technical problems. We didn't expect it to be so difficult.
Jaetaanko me tästä ruutu? Näkyykö nyt toi... Okei.
Eli nyt sieltä äänitetään. Joo. Hello. Jos otat kameran sieltä kiinni.
Niin.
Hello. So I think we had this idea that now we're not in a hurry, and I think most of you are at home anyway. So I think this can be the this is now the informal part of the lecture. We're gonna have a beer and sit by the fire, and then we're going to kind of talk. Talk a bit about try to have this kind of ending ending dialogue. I think what I was thinking earlier was that the name of the lecture, actually, I think it was called first Looking Forward, and that's kind of how I first approached it, and I think and I think this is something that kind of everyone has to do in this moment, because I think the forward, or the horizon is incredibly foggy at the moment for everyone. And not only professionally, but we just kind of really don't know how the things that we've in a way taken to be natural or normal, which ones of them will change completely, which ones of them will collapse in some way, and which ones will remain, and how will our kind of daily lives be impacted in a way through the kind of context where we're working or living, and things like how both kind of general sentiment and behavior and politics and the economy, how are they all kind of somehow in a kind of unprecedented suspension. And I think looking forward is particularly challenging at this moment. And I think it's but at the same time, I think it's something that I think kind of everyone is doing, like kind of privately, but from their from their very kind of limited view. And I think somehow also this kind of question of like what does this mean in a way for architecture? What does this mean in a way for the kind of for the city? What does it mean for public space? What does it mean for, in a way, kind of dwelling? What does it mean for things like kind of construction or kind of what does it mean for labor, for example? That human proximity becomes something that you have to kind of consider before engaging, for example, and that we are kind of also all the time unsure of what will be, let's say, the risk of human interaction in 5 weeks or in 6 months or in 3 years, and I think this somehow I for me kind of we were kind of just trying to connect a few things here. So first of all, when in spring, in mid-March, we shut down the sauna for 3 months, and I started actually kind of more kind of looking back into architecture work, and I think it's somehow I think the role of the domestic of the home has kind of really been somehow heightened. I mean, a lot of people are working from home. They are spending most of their time home, and at the same time, but the home has become even in a way even more kind of removed from in a way the interpersonal, not even the public space, but somehow, and then the nature of public space, of indoor public space has become in a way somehow also very kind of questionable, public transport, things like this. And I think in Finland, we've had this incredible summer of everything happening outdoors, basically. And now that the summer is over and people are somehow also starting to be clearly kind of tired, or they have kind of exhaustion of this semi-special circumstance. And I mean, the numbers have been very low in Finland. So we've had less than 10 cases per day for 5 million inhabitants for months, but or for significant time. But now they've jumped up. We had I think 40 cases today. Yesterday was nearly 100, and we are just experiencing in a way the first bump in a way of the second wave. So and I think it's so somehow this the domestic and the home, and I think I'm really somehow kind of not very optimistic about most things, and I kind of what's happening to, for example, buildings that are public spaces or things like, or let's say retail also, they are all becoming somehow hollowed out, and shops are closing for things like you know, nightclubs or restaurants are also somehow disappearing, and there's this kind of complete kind of cleanup, let's say, of the types of spaces that actually the city consists of, and what we have at the end is only homes. So we are very fast moving towards a city which is only domestic space, and then things like certain kind of logistics, plus then in a way kind of some kind of outdoor, which is a kind of infrastructure as well. But this infrastructure includes things like parks, and also kind of nature has become somehow like a very performative space in kind of during the spring, and in a way, like a lot of people have you know, they've seen this as an opportunity to go to, let's say, national parks and central parks and nature reserves, but somehow they have become incredibly populated as well, and the kind of imagery of in a way being alone in nature has become somehow very kind of popular, and somehow visiting nature, or the kind of peace of nature, or this kind of human distancing through engaging with nature has become this kind of trope, which is also, you know, maybe, you know, it has its shadows as well. And somehow I think, from like my point of view, I think like the like somehow the questions of housing and the in a way the affordability of housing, and things like the you know, like you know, how to provide housing in a kind of fair way in this kind of completely unprecedented moment where basically a lot of jobs are becoming kind of vaporized, and there's a kind of a totally new type of precarity which is sweeping, I mean, not only Finland, but like kind of most of the world, has become you know, kind of, you know, it's really I think we're kind of we are not even able to imagine somehow the kind of fallout of this, and I'm not really sure what will be what the problem will in a way kind of look like when it starts to have kind of coherent, in a way, perceivable forms, but I'm sure the problem will not be similar everywhere, but I really see that at the same time, kind of the construction sector seems to be kind of very determinedly kind of still going forward, and they are also seeing this as a kind of opportunity to in a way to kind of consolidate their power, their view of how housing should be, how the city should be, and I think there's a kind of, at least you know, it seems that there is a kind of this is, you know, this is kind of one field of operations which is you know, where, let's say, let's say, I don't know, the balance of power, or in a way the room for, like, you know, what architecture can do, or what housing policy can do, or what urban planning can do is now the kind of the room for maneuvering is totally different than 2 years ago, and I think it's I don't know, I have bad dreams about it, but maybe this is maybe like a you know a note here at the end that I think is looking forward, which is extremely kind of difficult, and I think we kind of do it all from a variety of from perspectives. What kind of, when you look forward, what do you see? Maybe this is the.
Well, I guess that's the point. It's a bit hard to see anything, and I think our presentation somehow is a reflection of that, because during this spring we've kind of been going inwards a lot, like to ourselves and to our thoughts, and like really these existential questions more than actually like, because it feels so impossible to project anything in the future.
You spend so much time in a room, just just you guys and no one else. And,
two of us, and like thinking about like life and death, and
but also thinking of how like when you're confined in your room, of course you're thinking of the basic question of how would you like to, or how, in what kind of room would you want to be self-quarantined?
Yeah, when you're lacking like the stimuli, you start looking at your like immediate context with new eyes. Of course, we also started renovating during this time, so I guess that's one.
We wondered if we could come in with a question to you. It's kind of, like you say, it's very difficult to think about the future. We're all in this state of total uncertainty. But like, do you have any projects that are live now? And especially in housing, for example, larger housing projects. And we wonder if there are any like immediate changes like today in those projects. Have you had?
Well, I mean, let's say the kind of housing sector, it has not significantly slowed down, and actually the price of housing in Helsinki has not slumped. There has been some, in a way, leveling and so on, but I think it doesn't seem that there's, for example, like an economic blow that has been kind of, at least hasn't affected the market yet. I think in some point there was even a kind of reheating, and I think in Helsinki the housing market has been severely overheated for a very long time, and and partly, I mean, this kind of complex chain of reasons behind it. But I think I have a few kind of housing related projects going on. I'm also I'm doing some small projects which are more in kind of kind of rural setting, and then I'm also involved with kind of organizing and kind of thinking the kind of spatial arrangement of a contemporary music festival, which is in spring. And for this we have to kind of anticipate the possibility that there cannot be any concerts, for example. And one of the questions related to that is how do you, and there may not be a future where you can have, for example, a choir concert, not for the safety of the choir, nor for the safety of the audience. And then you have to reapproach, for example, the form of a concert in a way through like this question of like, okay, if we can't have a concert in a concert hall, kind of what can that be? And for this, the kind of approach that became that we were interested in a way in it already before kind of Corona hit us. It was we were going to have the theme of Yanis Xenakis and his polytopes, which were these kind of spectacles with light and sound and technology and fire and electricity that he kind of staged in kind of late 60s and early 70s. And somehow then during last spring and this summer, this kind of form of the polytope or of this kind of concert or the music in a way leaving the kind of confines and also the kind of script of the concert into something else, which is a kind of spatial temporal composition of elements, became the thing to investigate. And somehow the backup plan, if it's not possible to have concerts with the Radio Symphony Orchestra or at the National Opera, then the festival, for example, will consist in a way only of these experimental things that will happen in the city or in the forest. And there is also this kind of scenario that how long can you sustain, for example, a radio symphony orchestra where, for example, it's not safe for the players to rehearse together? How long can you have an institution like a choir or something if they cannot practice? And and somehow it's a similar thing is happening, for example, in film industry, or film theaters or for example, airlines are also in this situation that they will be able to bank or kind of postpone a certain kind of collapse until a certain moment, or nightclubs. But then after that point, the infrastructure will disappear. It will not exist anymore, and then in a way we will just not have it. And I think this, you know, kind of the, like, what are the cultural impacts of that, and in a way, what do we have to invent in a way to somehow to compensate for it, is in a way somehow that's like someone has to do it. And I think within the very small scale of this music festival, for example, these are the questions that we have to somehow kind of go through.
Yeah, you can investigate these new forms of
precisely, yeah,
living now.
And in that case, it's lucky that we had this precedent, and we could we had already been looking at the kind of Xenaki's work, and there's this connection between architecture and music, and it's definitely experimental contemporary music, the kind of field. So it kind of makes sense to try to kind of break new ground with that. But I think it's somehow the you know, kind of all the effects that this situation has through policy, through public spending, through kind of, you know, the having to think everything through, are really going to be felt in surprising ways, and for like a very long time, I think.
Yeah, definitely, and as you say, like through all levels of all types of projects. But we really enjoyed your lecture, and we really think you embodied our title for the lecture series of New Shapes. It was so great to see your presentation through actually the physical projects and the models and all this media. So we really want to say thank you for tonight. And yeah, Hannah, do you have anything to add?
No, I would also just like to thank you for joining us, and I think, yeah, we were all equally interested in wanting this to be a new way of lecturing or talking together across these borders. So
yeah,
it's been
it seems to have opened up possibilities that we will take further in the lecture series.
The news is today that I think one is allowed to travel from Sweden to Finland again after this like long time of being having like a closed border in that direction. So if anyone is coming from Norway, you know, and not coming through Lapland, but if you're coming to Helsinki, you know, please come visit, and you can have a sauna. That's what we do here. So, but please come in the morning and come alone. That's how it works.
On towel.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and we have a policy of silence. So in order to reduce the emission of aerosols, it's kind of quiet inside the building.
Everybody muted.
Yes, the mute button. But yeah, it would have been really nice to visit Oslo. But yeah, maybe in another reality, in some other future.
Yeah.
Looking forward.
Looking forward.
Okay. Yeah. Then we say like yeah, thank you to everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for tonight, and see you next time.
See you next time.
Good night.
Hyvää yötä. Moi moi.
Do I?
No, I think you can leave.